There are 4,315,275,402 Alabama football podcasts on the internet. And now you get to ignore every single one. This is the Houndstooth Podcast. Real talk from real fans. We gump to a standard around here. Recapping the Alabama Crimson Tide and college football from around the SEC and across the nation. This is the Houndstooth Podcast. And here are your hosts, Bill Sylvie, Jessica Brand, John Henry, and Bo Gonora.
Well, hey, good evening to you folks. Welcome back to the show. It is an absolute joy to be back. Let's welcome the rest of our awesome staff on. Say hello to Jessica, Bo, and John Henry. Roll Tide, y'all.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Yeah, we back. Woo-hoo.
We are back. We are starting Vengeance Tour 2022, and boy, it's going to be a lot of fun, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is just the beginning, right? I mean, remember, I go back to the quote that Saban said, coincidentally enough, after the Texas National Championship, that this is just the beginning, and it really is.
Yep, for sure. And I got to tell you, it started off right. It started off absolutely fantastically. Alabama versus Utah State, which, okay, not a football powerhouse, Utah State. All right. With all respect to USU, not precisely the Titans of 1A FBS that Alabama should have been shaking in their boots on. But guys, I'm going to tell you something. I don't care who it was. I think what I saw Saturday evening in the 55-0 romp that Alabama undertook, because it was a subtle thing. I'm not talking about the overmatched performance of our defense. Will Anderson feasting like a basking shark in a pool full of caviar. I'm not talking about Bryce Young. Well, actually, I am talking a little bit about Bryce Young, but I'm not talking about the guided precision of his passes. No, it's a little bit more subtle than that. And it does have to do with Bryce. He looked like he was having fun. There was a joy to what he was doing. He didn't seem pensive. He didn't seem rattled. And I can't say that I saw during the Miami game at this same time last year.
I'm confused. I'm sorry. You said he was having fun? Did somebody throw him a pizza party? Is that what you're saying?
I was told there was no fun in Alabama football. That's what I was told.
That's what I was told as well. I'm very confused, Bill.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. So let me not to belabor the point, but I think I'll let Colin Coward tell us what he saw. Folks, I'm here to tell you, Alabama has a Nick Saban problem. This is a team that came in off of a losing streak, that hadn't won a game in 2022, with a quarterback who was rattled. He was constantly scrambling, constantly under pressure. This is an Alabama team that has a Nick Saban problem. Alabama was picked off more than Utah State. Bryce Young was hurried more. This was the second lowest scoring game for them in 2022. Folks, the dynasty is over. That's all I have to say. All right, well, thank you very much, Colin. Go back in your box. There you go.
How did that guy on the show?
Is that better? is that less fun for you guys?
Well, if anybody is able to suck the fun of anything, it's Colin.
Well, I think he's like Beetlejuice. If we say his name one more time, he's going to appear, and that won't be fun at all. But anyway, so all that silliness aside, on to different silliness. Bo, what'd you like?
So the defense looked good. I didn't see any glaring weaknesses on the defense at all. I had a conversation today with a coworker about how some of the beat writers out there are talking about how this could be Saban's best defense yet, which should be very scary for the rest of college football. I don't know that they're going to be the best as far as just like raw stats go, but there's not much that you can pick apart about the defense other than they got too many quarters that could start and they can only play 2 instead of the 4, on the offensive side, everything looked good for a first game. My biggest concern is still the offensive line. I don't know, and I'm not a great offensive line, analyzer, but it seemed to me like they just need some polish. Possibly there was some shuffling going on. I noticed different players coming in. It started fairly early as well, right? And it appeared that there was some sort of new blocking scheme going on when they would run the ball. The pass pro seemed fine, but the rush defense it didn't seem like they were getting the push that they needed. So Bama looked good for a first game for an opponent of this caliber, who I actually watched Utah State play Connecticut the week before, just scouting the competition, right? But I'm also I follow the Falcons, so Utah State and Air Force are in the same conference, so I'm fairly familiar with Utah State. And they're a good little team. They're conference champions last year, but it's still it was a ridiculously overmatched game. So that's about it.
Yeah, and I mean, from stuff like this, it is hard to draw conclusions. It can't, you can't paint this and call it a complete picture. I think we're going to see more of that out of Texas. I think we're going to handle Texas, but it's going to be a different ball of wax. But we'll get to that when we get to that. What do you got for us, Big John?
Well, I'll tell you what. The Bryce Young 2.0 upgrade that we just installed this year, it has wheels. 100 yards on 5. I can't even call them rushes. 5 scrambles with a 63-yard scramble to set up a score. He was in complete command of the offense, and he didn't play a perfect game. He would be the first one to admit that. He made a couple of mistakes. He missed a couple of assignments in setting up the line and how they should block. But boy, he's really got it was a good start. He was calm and in control, and yes, they must have installed a slide right to his locker because he looked like he was having lots of fun. The O-line, that game was a tough mental test for the O-line, especially since they're new and haven't really played together that much yet. Utah State, what they do, lots of slanting and stunning, and they're shooting gaps left and right. So that was a tough test for them, just mentally. And they fared fairly well. I mean, the run game hurt because of what Utah State did, and we just if we had them in week 3, we would have run for 300 yards. But the offensive line, great job pass blocking, run blocking. They're going to get that together. That's actually probably a pretty good place for them to start. They know what they've got to work on, and they will. Wide receivers mostly look really good. I didn't see any issues. The only weakness we had there was honestly tight end. And from what I hear, we're getting our starting tight end from last year back this week. So that should help things. And lastly, defense. Yeah.
Yeah.
The front seven dominated. And the secondary, with the exception for that first pass play, looked really good. And that really wasn't even that bad. The guy was covered. The defender just needed to make a play on the ball. He was in position. They tackled really well in space. Their tackling has greatly improved year over year. And the secondary looked really good at taking on blocks in the open field. That's important, and that'll really help once we get to those teams that are going to really try to isolate us out there. So, good start.
Definitely agree with you there. Jess, what do you think?
Let's start off with the little stat that I had found. So I think it's kind of interesting. In the Saban era, so since 2007, there have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shutouts that have been with 55 points or more scored. Alabama has 3 of them, including this one. Now, here's the other thing, too. You have to consider, of those 9, quite a few of them came against, not top tier schools. And that's a Mountain West school. I mean, that is a Mountain West team that went 11-3 last year with a pass heavy offense, which admittedly was an issue for the Tide down the stretch. So they are the only ones with 2 against an FBS school. They did against Vanderbilt in 2017, Utah State this year, and the only other ones to do that actually are USC over Washington State in 2008 and Arizona over Idaho in 2008.
Utah, first quarter.
Sorry.
Zip, Blyce, Young, Jermaine.
Sorry, I'm having a little bit of an audio problem here. Sorry about that. Please continue.
No, so that was pretty much the gist of it, though. This ties them. No other school combined has more greater shutouts than 55 or more than Alabama and Saban's tenure now as a result. Because they had this one in Vanderbilt in 2017, and there were 2 in 2008. The Trojans over Washington State in 2008, and then Arizona over Idaho in 2008. So that's pretty spectacular. The offensive line was the first thing I was looking at in terms of overall scheming because, it's a new unit. It's probably a good tune-up. Blake Anderson's teams are going to make it tough on you. As much as they made that look simple, it really wasn't when you consider all the key pieces moving outside of really, in my opinion, Bryce. And to get familiarity like that is good. I was especially concerned with, and of all people, Emil Ekiyor. Like, this is the guy who's the redshirt senior and who has been there the longest. I know Randolph is technically a grad guy playing at left guard, but he has been there a long, long time. He's been a starter on this line fairly consistently. I saw a few breakdowns there. I saw him pedaling his feet backwards like he was on a backwards bike. That means you're losing contain. He was decent out of his stance. He wasn't very good in responding to punches. He's got to be better at that. It's the same issue that I saw with Alex Leatherwood. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be a first-round pick, but what I'm saying is that this is a concern that's kind of been an issue plaguing Tide linemen for a while, even on some of our better lines. The secondary lived up to the billing. The defensive line, the edges were special as expected. You have Dallas Turner on one side, you have Will Anderson on the other. No sacks don't worry me. I know some people are having issues with that, but when you consider Utah State used 3 quarterbacks to give different looks and not to break anybody down, that basically was Blake Anderson's white flag. Like, I mean, you could put a French flag and that could have been their logo for the night with how they played offense. Because they had designed dump-offs all night. And the great thing about design dump-offs, you're going to get some cheap yards. You're not going to get sacked because if it's by design, your checkoff is your first look. Like, okay. I mean, that's kind of frustrating from a stat sheet maybe perspective, but in terms of actual football, no, it's not. I was concerned a little bit with how Bryce made a decision. I believe it was in the second or third. He had a guy on a comeback. It would have been Burton's third touchdown. I think Jermaine Burton was great. Toby Prentice looked very shifty at H. He had tremendous success rate. That's going to be a massive weapon that I know he's shined in camp. I know he shined over the summer or when they were able to practice, but that was special. But Burton's shifty moves, as expected, if you've heard some of my takes on him before the season, I thought he was going to be a Mechie plus. And I think that's the case. He was consistently fighting for yards after the tackle and fighting for yards after contact, absorbing them and often moving it down. And that's such a valuable thing to have because I love John Mechie, don't get me wrong. But Mechie was the kind of guy who beat you with his physicality at the line. He wasn't a guy who would do it necessarily after he caught the ball, unless of course you're Dean of Florida in the SEC championship game in 2020.
when he was freelancing as an open field safety for about 10 seconds.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the only time I've seen Nike do that in open field. But my point is, though, like, we have a physical receiving group. Like, that's a story I've seen nobody mention. Toby can cut like a good steak that he is. Burton absorbs the contact. And then Holden's a guy who I've seen reports about, but again, he ran, I think, really solid routes. It didn't really necessarily show up necessarily physically. That's not his game. But we saw really clean-cut routes. And I don't care who you're facing. Granted, you might see a little bit of bump and run coverage. You might see some feedback on that. I bet Texas does that to try to stop us a little bit next week. But it was encouraging. You don't see good route running all that often at this level. And to see it this early on was encouraging to me. Rice's footwork looked a little bit better. Yeah, there were some little things that need to be fixed, but honestly, I had more questions answered than I anticipated having answered, and it's a good sign going forward. Yeah, there are flaws, of course there are, but for what I could have expected and what we got, very happy.
Right on. And personally, for me, if I didn't articulate it well enough with joking around and everything, Bryce looked happy to be out there. I mean, his runs were effortless.
And he was willing to run. He was
willing to run. He was not glued in place. I don't know what he and Bob, what chemistry that they got together, and it may be more Saban chemistry than Bill O'Brien. But Bryce Young, I mean, when he took off, the camera work at ESPN is top notch for what it is. But I mean, you don't get a full field view. But he was moving in, and I don't mean this in a negative way, in such a relaxed, almost lackadaisical trot on some of those scrambles that I felt.
I think that's the game slowing down for him, honestly, because I think a lot of us thought he was going to score on the 63-yard scamper. And I think that's the play that really exemplifies the fact that he was looser. Now, granted, how he ran on some of that was a little bit dangerous, but you got to admit he felt more relaxed doing it. And it felt like, as I said, game was slowing down, and that's how you make some of those cuts. That's how you beat three defenders on the near side boundary. So,
yes, I agree with you about the running. I mean, that's how you get a knee tendon snapped. That's you gotta drop shoulder and be a little more Jake Coker or Jalen Hurts there, Bryce. But he just looked like he was on wings, and I enjoyed every minute of his play. There was never a point at which I was like, "Come on, Bryce, get with it," And I mean, I think the example of all just, and we're gonna get to hard numbers here in just a second. TJ says he wasn't allowed to run last year. I think that's probably very true. But I feel like he. I just felt like he was a complete QB in that game, more so than he was in Miami last year, or in the Miami game rather. Last year. But let's talk about how complete and look at some numbers here. And the numbers are very entertaining. So Bryce was 18 for 28. And I want to circle back around to that in just a minute. 195 yards, averaging 5 touchdowns, QBR of 96.0. Milroe was not afraid to chuck the rock. Milroe, 76 yards. And yes, as TJ says, Milroe did truck a fool. Average 7.6, 1 TD, 1 int, one kind of misalignment there. QBR 56.8. And Ty Simpson was out there for a couple of plays, 1 for 2 for 10, and a QBR of 3 if you're keeping track of that. And our rushing leader was also Bryce Young, 100 yards, averaging 20 on 5 carries, 1 TD, long of 63. Jamar Gibbs, 9 for 93, averaging 10.3, long of 58.
That boy's
He is, and I'm sorry, I don't have that sample to hand. Next week, I promise. After Jamar's performs, I will have a Swifty. I will have a Swifty drop for us there. Jamarian Miller, 7 for 32, average of 4.6. Jace McClellan, 5 for 23, which was a bit of a surprise. I don't know. We can talk about the running game in the O-line. But averaging 4.6, long of 11. Roy Dell Williams, 3 for 15, with a long of 12. And of course, Milrow himself scrambled of 2 for 10 with a long of 7. Trey Sanders, 1 for 5. With a total of 278 yards. And it just that our quarterback put up 100 of those and was our leading rusher just makes me smile. Now, the receiving core, we had all these weapons again. This is the haters, the Colin Cowards, the I just don't like Alabama grumps, not gumps, grumps, are once again going to fall back on what they fell back on in 2020, which was, well, any quarterback could score with those guys. And we have those guys again, in my opinion. Trayshawn Holden, 5 for 70, 2 touchdowns, long of 17. Kobe Prentice, 5 for 60 with a long of 25. Burton, I don't know. Burton, I guess it's the touchdowns. Burton seemed more active than 5 for 35 with a long of 12, but it was because down in the red zone, he was a maniac. So 2 TDs for Burton. Jace McClellan, 2 for 25, also 2 touchdowns with a long of 17. Isaiah Bond, 2 for 23 with a long of 13. Kendrick Law, 2 for 22 with a long of 18. Miles, and I'm going to murder this. I apologize to you, young man. Miles Kitzelman. Am I getting that right? Kitzelman. 2 for 18, long of 13. Trey Sanders, 1 for 10. Roydell, 1 for 7. Christian Leary, 1 for 6. Jamar Gibbs, 1 for 5. We did not fumble. A little bit of a miscue on a pass. Defense. Mr. Anderson actually got outplayed just by a hair. I wouldn't say that to his face. Nobody tell him I said that. I'll call you a liar and delete this video if you do. But Jalen Moody, 6 total, 3 solo, and 1 tackle for a loss with a quarterback hurry. Mr. Anderson, 5 total, 3 solo, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 quarterback hurry. Brian Branch had 5, 3 solo. Chris Braswell, 4, 2 solo with 1 tackle for loss. Deontay Lawson, 4 total, 1 solo with a half a tackle for loss. Battle, 4 total, 1 solo. Malachi Moore had 4 for 1. Dallas Turner, 3 for 2 with 1 quarterback hurry. Kendrick Blackshear, 3 for 1 with 1 quarterback hurry. Justin, I'm sorry, I have a crap on it there. Yes, Justin Eboigbe.
He looked so good in the first quarter of Dale. Just like we didn't have that last year, where the D line just imposed itself. I mean, yeah, Anderson and Dallas late in the year, but that was fun. If you like defensive line, and you should like defensive line, that's what it's about, right there.
Well, I mean, this is a huge laundry list here. I would eat up the rest of the night. I'm gonna, let's see. DeMarco Helms did have a good evening. Let me see. Where is it? What am I? Yeah, Helms looked great. He was 2 tackles. Jaheim Oates, 2. 1 was solo. Christian Story, 2, and both of those were solos. Kyrie Jackson, 2, and both of his were solo. Ricks, 2 for 2. Henry Toa had 3. Byron Young had 2 with half of a tackle for loss. DJ Dill had 2. Terrion Arnold 1. Quandarius Robinson 1. And McKinstry. Kool-Aid. Oh no. Kool-Aid did not did not he'll get there. He'll get there. He was just warming up. Saban was using other weapons. That's it. That's
The
it.
thing that stood out to me on the stat line was that Gibbs almost broke 100 yards in his in his debut game, but he only had 9 carries. So and then McClellan only had 2 catches, both for touchdowns. So can't ask for better than that, right?
Yeah, really. To go back to what Jess said though, I mean, this is a defense that excites me. I haven't been this hyped about a defense since 20.
Yeah, other than their first pass play, which like John Henry said, the coverage was there, the defense was in position. He just, they got one off. Their next longest pass play was 9 yards. And that was it. They were throwing short underneath, and Jess mentioned this in the intro. They dumping it off very quickly, get the ball out of that QB's hand. Didn't matter who the QB was. The first read was the check down, and they were just bottled up, and there's nothing that they could do.
Yeah. And I feel like, if they were throwing more than 10 yards, it was just out of bounds. It was literally just to get the ball down the field away from Alabama. Not even an attempt to set up a play action for anything. They were throwing, like you say, they were throwing underneath, they were throwing slants, they were throwing screens. The pressure was there and you could feel it. Ja'Cory Brooks looked good on kick returns, 1 for 18. Now punt returns was where Kool-Aid did his work, 3 for 20. Will Reichard was perfect. Will, that is awesome. And we did have to punt. James Burnip had to punt.
He had a good one, though. It was 51 yards. The good one was 51 yards.
Yeah, we don't talk about the other one. So Burnip got a little bit of work. Let's hope he doesn't get any at all next week or this coming week, I should say, because Alabama's going to be scoring on every drive. Roll Tide. So I'm going to go back over to Bo. Is we have this little feature that we like to do, high tide, low tide, and elephant stomp moments. So what do you got for us, Bo? High tide, low tide,
So the high tide for me was what I'm calling the replacements, which are those guys that came in to fill the slots of all of that talent that left the field last year. I'm talking about Gibbs, Prentice, Burton, and even Kitzelman, who got some work because the tight end's injured. I was very pleased with the freshman wide receivers and the guys that stepped up. And Gibbs is as advertised. He's fast. He's shifty. He's swifty, I think is what we're going to call that.
Swifty.
And and Burton is, we knew who Burton was before he transferred because, so that was my high tide. My low tide, considering it's the first game, is not surprising, but just the second string offense as a unit is just, and they're not there yet. You don't really expect them to be there at this point. But they do seem to be maybe half a notch below where the second team typically is by this time of the year. Milroe is, needs to spend some time working on his reads and not put the wide receivers that he's throwing to in a position to where they get plastered as soon as they catch the ball. And his interception was, I think that was just a timing. that'll get there once, he has some more reps with those guys. The elephant stomp, Jackson's combo tackle for a loss.
Yes.
He blew up the blocker, knocked the guy's helmet off, and knocked him into the ball carrier. And I was just like, whoa, okay, there we go.
Yeah. He used a Utah State player to tackle another Utah State player. I don't want to get my hands dirty. You tackle your teammate.
Yes, that was my elephant stomp moment.
So how about it, Jess? High tide, low tide, elephant stomp. What do you got?
Yeah, high tide. I think you really got to pick. It's tough. I think I would go with really the secondary in this case. Everyone looked to do their job well against really what's a high passing attack. I thought Utah State was going to have better opportunities than they did. They only got into Alabama territory, past the 50, 3 different times, and that was all on the final 3 drives. So the starters never allowed it. Honestly, a statement like that makes me think of like a modern telling of the LSU national title game. So that's awesome. And honorable mention to Bryce's scamper for 63. That was fun for everybody involved, except for my injury concerns. But so I can laugh about it now. Low tide, where are we going with some of this stuff, though, about, honestly, the offensive line on the strong side? I mean, I think Latham looked really good. Don't get me wrong. He's lived up to the billing. He's on what I've discovered is the Alabama 3-year plan to start you inside as a freshman, move you to right tackle as a sophomore, and to left tackle as a junior. The fact he's starting there without any issues and looked the part is good, but I still wonder about really the center of this line. I worry about the weak side. Steen was okay. I worry still about some of Milroe's motions. His throwing mechanics are not very good. It's a good day when I'm talking about deep down the depth chart and strings of quarterbacks and throwing motions. But this guy's going to probably be the starter next year. So, I mean, you got to think about it from that perspective, or at least I am. Elephant Stomp was designed for plays like the pushback by Kyrie Jackson. That is what I'm talking about, right frickin' there. That's fun. That's something I would do because it's like, I don't want to do it, you do it. So yeah, I mean, think about that though. If you're an offensive lineman, you go against the dummies and you push them up. Honestly, it reminded me of that. But he treated a real human as a dummy. Like that is spectacular. That's what it's all about. An exclamation point and something special. Perfect personification.
Right on. So how about it, Big John?
This is going to sound a little familiar because my high tide is that the Tide's D pitched a shutout. And like Jess said, they didn't cross the 50 until about halfway through the third quarter. So, I mean, the whole first half, no, they kept them back. It was a lot of 3 and outs. And second half, the first part of the third quarter, they did that too. But the last 3 drives, we had we were getting some people some work and they were starting to drive the field. But we maintained enough intensity that even on that last drive where they were getting down close, we kept them out of the end zone. So the defense, that's the high tide. Low tide, and I'm going to have a specific moment, and it's going to be Jalen Milroe. He had a guy wide open and just underthrew the ball, and he could have had a touchdown, but nope, that was an interception. He waited too long and underthrew it. Otherwise, we would be saying wonderful things about him instead of complaining about him. And my elephant stomp, I'm going to make it unanimous. My elephant stomp is Kyrie Jackson taking on a block on a wide receiver screen. One of the things that for the last few years that our secondary has had trouble with, 2 things: taking on blocks out on the edge and making tackles in space. Our tackling has been bad the last couple of years, especially in the secondary. We showed great improvement on both of those. And this is not the only play where they blew up a wide receiver screen or defeated a block and brought down a guy in the open field. This was just the most spectacular one. So that's my elephant stomp.
All right. Well, we're gonna sound like a bunch of broken records here, but I am gonna say high tide. concerns about leg safety aside, Bryce's scramble for 63. I mean, that just, or 53, sorry. But anyway, that scramble was just so much fun to watch. Although I'm going to tie it with a little subtle thing, and I think you guys know what I'm talking about. After Alabama completed a drive for touchdown, he's out there, doing double guns and high-fiving everybody, walks over, does a fist bump with Saban, and immediately switches over to getting coached up. I mean, it was like a light switch. Like, but I didn't get the sense that Nick was dressing him down. I got more the sense it was, yeah, I know I could have wrapped that drive up a lot quicker, and here's what I realize now. It was Nick coaching him up, but it wasn't a dressing down. It was two professionals having a discussion about what could have been done better, what could have made very, very good into perfect. That was a great moment to see, and I'm glad the cameraman caught it for us.
In my world, we would call that a drains up.
A drains up. All right.
Whenever we have a session where we talk about the things that we need to do to improve, the mistakes that were made, how we can clean it up. I got my boss is a Brit. He calls it a drains up.
A drains up. All right. Low tide, weak side of the offensive line. Bill, if you try it up the gut 3 times and it doesn't work, what makes you think it's going to work a 4th time? We have O-line issues on the weak side. That's why it's called a weak side. Steve Sarkisian is neither an idiot nor inobservant. He's going to bring the heavy armor through that flank, and we're going to feel it. I think we're going to win at Texas. We'll talk about later. Stuff better get fixed over there. And of course, I mean, we're unanimous. Elephant stomp. Picking a man up and beating his fellow player with him. Come on. That is that's like comedy movie about college football made in the early 1990s level of
hey, how you guys lifting them up so high?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you could see Adam Sandler wondering about how these guys are doing that. I mean, they made a practice drill into reality. How freaking cool.
Yeah, he just grabbed a piece of convenient equipment, which happened to be one of USU's players, and threw him at another USU player to complete the play. So that was my elephant stomp moment for the evening, and I thoroughly enjoyed seeing that. Like I was watching, and I was able to I was recording at the same time, and I was able to stop and back up. I had to watch it again because I didn't believe what I had just seen. Not only that it happened, but that it happened so fast. This wasn't like a slow grind where he pushed the guy back a bunch of steps and he stumbled into the, no, he just grabbed him, pow. And that's that. So yes, that was my elephant stomp. But now, boys and girls, all of our audience out there, now we are at halftime. And if you haven't been here before, halftime is trivia time. That's right. When we bring you a little slice of Alabama trivia. And for those who are able to, or the first person who's able to guess this trivia question correctly, you will get the shout out of the week. Now, this, of course, this video is good until next Thursday night. So if nobody gets it initially, no fair Googling. You got to use your Alabama football IQ on this one. At any point, you can leave it down in the comments, or you can leave a comment over in the live chat stream. If you know the answer to tonight's trivia question, first person to get it, whether it's now, whether it's a little bit down the road before the next show, you will get the shout out. So tonight's trivia question, and it should be a softball. Everybody should be able to pick up on this one. What was the last season opener that the Alabama Crimson Tide played at home and lost? What was the last season opener that the Alabama Crimson Tide played at home and lost? I'll give you a hint. Nick Saban was not the coach. I don't think Nick's lost an opener at all.
So this happened so long ago. Sorry, Jess, go ahead.
He did to Virginia. I believe he lost to Virginia Tech when he was at LSU. That is the last time he's lost an opener. So, fun fact.
Okay. So the Alabama loss happened so long ago that I was in basic training for the Air Force when it happened, and I didn't see it, obviously.
Did it happen so long ago that Napster was still a thing? Oh, my gosh. Those of you who watched the game know of what I speak. But yeah, so there's your trivia question. All day guesses Northern Illinois. No, it is not. It is not Northern Illinois. I don't even think you're in the right time zone on that one. But anyway, so take your best shot, your best guesses in the chat, or you can leave them in the comments under the video if we don't get an answer by the end of the night, and you get the shout out. Oh, TJP, come on. You didn't even let me finish the halftime event. Yes, it was UCLA. It was UCLA 2001 at Bryant Denny, 17-20 UCLA, and I think was yep. That was it. So TJP gets the shout out of the week, and he put it in the form of a question.
Hashtag halftime interrupters. There's your new band name of the night, TJ.
So that is correct. May it remain the last one ever. Alrighty, so we're gonna shift gears a little bit here, and we're gonna put up the these are the top 10 scores for the evening, and Jess is going to bring us what are your no kisses and no hugs? Do you have any no kisses and no hugs on
played
stats?
a lot of base. I will say this. We played a lot of base. We did play some nickel, which is basically our base, but we played them no respect on defense. I mean, it's not going to be a long segment because I like to cover the intricacies like the Apex Defender, our cover sevens, our China stuff. So actually, I guess that's the point here. We ran a lot of China concepts in the red zone. So let's talk about that a little bit. Offensive content for me. What is this? But no, I think it applies. That applies why I work. So China concept. Take the CH in China that you get Hicks from, which ends Hicks, and the I in China refers to the inside because normally on a Hicks you'd have your lead guy go to the outside. This was our most common play in the red zone. We ran it a few times with Prentice as the primary guy, but Burton, I believe, on his first score in the Crimson Tide uniform was under a China play. And those were very critical for us. On defense, we played our basic 3. We played our base 7. We didn't even play any mods. We didn't play anything fancy. But China plays are kind of interesting about what we can think about going forward. Because to me, I think about the fact that we want to go up over the middle, I think, as opposed to going outside. We're going to fake going outside, but think about how we operated last year with Jameson Williams and John Mechie. We would consistently work our way inside. Granted, some of that was because of Robinson's limitations. Love him as a back, but he was not an outside guy. That's not his fault. McClellan was supposed to be that. He got hurt for his ACL. This year, I think we're going to work outside in. We are going to work in reverse, which is what we did under Sarkisian, under Mac. Right? Because we would have Harris go to the outside, Notre Dame game, hurdle. Think about that. And then we would work inside to get Smitty on almost an inline play. Not directly inline, of course, but that's just it. The China plays are what are interesting to me going forward. And they won us the game, essentially, because it's not the defense like I would normally cover, but China plays. Look them up if you get a chance, because I think they're going to be a fundamental of this offense. It's not a take the cover off offense, or at least from what I understand of Prentice. Admittedly, I've seen one game of his. It's not what I know of Mechie. It's not what I think of Burton. I think he's more like Mechie in that regard. He can get you some mid stuff, but he's not going to go deep. Latu's, they're going to need him to be in line a bit. Oh yeah, Oots was not good last week. Oots was not good. That's a problem, by the way. Thankfully, Latu's coming back, but geez. But that really is it. China's going to be our key play because it's short to execute. It's a popular concept that basically has no answer, and it takes advantage of our strengths. So watch for those inside routes, those inside hitches, or China's. Hopefully we get some good food. I'll be there with Eddie Lacy. Here's my birthday, so.
Excellent. China. Let me tell you, we have some great people out there. Maybe some of them are terrible. I understand that, but they're great.
We need a wall on the offensive line. So
look, we're going to build a great wall on the weak side of the offensive line, and we're going to make Texas pay for it. Okay. All right. It's going to be wonderful. China. Okay. So moving right along. Let's talk about around the conference, and I'm going to turn the controls over to Big John and to Bo, and we're going to talk about around the conference.
Go, Bo.
Go, John. Your turn.
Okay. Well, what do you want to handle? Do you want to handle the East or the West?
I put them in the Alabama and not Alabama categories. So,
well, let's talk about the other game that everybody was keeping an eye on. Then, Georgia.
Yeah, let's talk about free shoes versus loose shoes.
Oh, you want to talk about that one first? Oh, that. I'm sorry. I'll be laughing through the whole thing because that was a dirt fest. Oh, that was terrible. There was sloppy execution across the board on both sides of the ball. For both teams, it was that was an ugly, sloppy game, and my notes are LSU out-derped Florida State and lost by 1. Those are my notes.
Yeah, that's basically what happened. I mean, it's like all right. So the ineptitude. I thought Brian Kelly was a better coach than that. I hated Notre Dame, but Brian Kelly, I thought. He's a pretty good coach. I mean,
Yeah, but he's still got a lot of Ogeron people there. He's got to get rid of that.
He looked like he was possessed by the spirit of Coach Ogeron.
Some bad voodoo. But we got a question, though. Here's a very important one. What is better? And I didn't mean better, not worse. Brian Kelly's Louisiana fake Southern accent with his family, or Billy Neighbors and their special teams. Between the two muff punts and the mixed extra point, which I had said was going to happen after the touchdown. It felt like that kind of day. But which one would you rather have?
I mean, I think which one would I rather have?
Yeah, which one would you rather have? You're stuck with one.
Face aids? I don't. I mean, I guess I would rather have the fake Southern accent. It's more cringe, but it doesn't lose you games.
Just recruits.
Yeah, well, okay.
The leak neighbor. But yeah. It's. I mean, at least at least you can do a dab and you can get a guy to Alabama that way. Like people forget that though. Like we got the guy in that video.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that video. Oh, that was.
I can't get too mad at Brian Kelly. I mean, being a football coach is murder.
Oh.
Sorry.
Way to cherry pick the low-hanging fruit there.
Well,
yeah, it was. Yeah, so yes, LSU was hard to watch this year. I think we agree on that.
Also, congrats, LSU did win something. They were the only team in the SEC that lost this week.
Yeah, Vandy is 2-0.
Yeah.
And lead
I'm leading the East.
Guys, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to jump in and interrupt. I'm having some kind of problem with my gear because it sounded like Jess said Vandy is 2-0, but I don't. I think she said Vandy is too slow.
Well, that's
Vandy won't go. Because she couldn't have said what I think she just said. Vandy is 2-0. My God, please continue. I'm sorry.
averaging
So,
52.5
they
points a
beat
game.
Hawaii. They beat 63-10 in Hawaii, and then they whipped up on mighty Elon, 42-31. Elon in North
Yeah, I'm
Carolina.
not sure what state Elon's in.
North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those little what do you call it? The liberal arts school up there.
No, yeah.
I know of it. It's in the same. They're in the same conference as the team that was it. Who was it that played? Hold on. We'll come to them
They're in
later.
the CAA, I think.
Yes, it's the CAA. The
The
Colonial
Coastal
Athletic.
Athletic Association or whatever.
it's the Colonial Athletic Association.
Oh,
Colonial.
Wow.
okay.
So
Today
it's,
I learned.
they're in there with some of those northeastern private schools. You know what I mean?
Man, Hawaii must really be bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
know
tried
the
to watch.
umpire Joe
I
West?
tried to watch that game, and it just was like, I can't watch this. So,
We'll find out. They're playing Wake Forest at home this
yeah,
week, and Wake Forest is ranked number 23 right now.
yeah.
Joe West, the umpire, went there. The guy who records all the music and stuff.
I'm sorry, who?
Joe West. He's a pretty well-known baseball umpire. Went there.
Ah, okay. Had a neighbor years ago that was a former volleyball player there. Yeah. Okay. So.
Anyway,
Moving on.
Hey, and is Tennessee back? They beat Ball State 59-10.
Tennessee is not back. Don't ask foolish questions. Next.
It'll be a good test this
Well,
weekend. Though.
we'll
Let's
learn a
go
little
to
bit more about them. They're playing number 24 Pitt this weekend
Yeah.
at Acrisure Stadium.
Yeah. Worst portmanteau ever.
Is it safe to let Tennessee on a field that's named after mustard though?
Well, it's not anymore, but yes, they will blend. They will blend into those bright yellow seats. And Kentucky beat Miami, not that one, 37-13.
Not that Miami. The Red Hawks.
Coming up, and they've got Florida in the swamp this weekend, so they're going to
Yeah. Actually, I'm looking forward to watching that game. I need to see who's who over there. Florida surprised the crap out of me, beating Utah. I think Billy Napier's a really good coach, and I think Utah's a good school too. I mean, a good team. I mean, I think I still have them as the favorite to win the pack. Insert number here.
That's a pretty good bar.
Yeah, but I mean, that was a good win, and it's like this dude was on the bench for Florida last year to play quarterback. It's like, what was Dan Mullen thinking? So, I don't know, but yeah, that was a good win for Gator.
Yeah, and of course Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia, I think, overperformed, and Oregon realized that they have Bo Nix as quarterback.
Yeah.
Congrats, Bo Nix. You may be the only player to lose to Georgia 3 times for 2 different schools.
Well, Georgia's going to have a little break this weekend because they've got the Sanford Fighting Baptists at home.
Yeah.
And I tell you something about Sanford. They may get beat. They may lose the game, but they will win the potluck every time.
Yeah, they will.
Amen.
Yep.
Yes, the Lord.
They should use that as a distraction, just like have a full spread over on the sideline.
They just have it lined up on the sidewalk when the team gets
the game.
And
I miss some of the good Baptist cooking. I have
the little lady standing there going, "Aren't you sure you don't want some more?" And
pound cake.
Yes, get them all carved up.
Baked mac and cheese. Country fried steak.
I get the sweet tea for y'all. I'll get some of my Jack Daniel's pulled pork. That's good stuff.
There you go.
There you go.
All right, who
Y'all
you
are
got
making
next,
me
John?
homesick. There's a news update. You need to know this. Missouri is still in the SEC.
In name
And they
only.
beat Louisiana Tech
Really?
224 last weekend.
I don't have Missouri on my list here.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, they're not a southern enough state to be in this conference. Like, can I just say that? Like, I mean, honestly, it bugs me. Like every other team, like, I mean, Florida. Okay, you could say some parts like Miami aren't really embodiment of the South, but Gainesville embodies the South. Every other school in the staying conference but them embodies the South.
Okay, but when Oklahoma joins up in, what is it, 26 or 25, will Missouri at that point be less not Southern?
Oh man. I mean,
Well-
think about the official state meal of Oklahoma, though. That's a redeeming point in their factor, big time. Look that up if you don't know what that is.
Well, I mean, a lot of those people, a lot of the people who live in Oklahoma, their ancestors came from Georgia and South Carolina and North Carolina and Alabama.
I can't wait to see Matt Mitchell having fun with that. I mean, he already is with the occasional Texas and Oklahoma showing up in the SEC.
Why are you guys here?
Uh,
All right, who you got next? Who you got next, John?
Oh well, let's move on over to the West and Auburn, in impressive showing against Mercer, 42-16.
That was the campaign. Like, what was that?
Yeah, which no one got to saw because it was on ESPN Plus. Way to go, Auburn.
The
Yeah.
Ocho.
Well, you did, you get to watch both highlights from that game.
Kickoff.
And
And
Higgsby was neat in that game, though. He was going outside like quite a bit. Like it was more than I expected. He's been mostly between the tackles, maybe slightly outside them. That's interesting how Harsin was using him. Honestly, very different than last year.
They would have to. Their offense was not that great last year.
I'm going to say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm going to say one single solitary thing about Auburn. A cornered animal with nothing to lose is very dangerous. Remember that come the Iron Bowl.
Thank God it's in T-Town this year.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, no kidding. After last year, I don't even know. Anyway, please continue.
All right. So Texas A&M, they beat Sam Houston.
Yes.
They were brutal in that game. Are we back from the halftime of that game yet, though? I'm not sure.
No, I think halftime is still technically going on. Good Lord.
Yeah. They didn't look very good for the longest time. I don't know.
King, yikes! They have a problem. I mean, they got Max Johnson, who's okay. He's not his father, Brad, an interesting lefty guy. But like, what a slow offense, right? Well, because the only touchdowns I saw them get in the first half. Because at that point, I'm like, no, I'm done. I mean, honestly, they got some decent separation, but when they didn't meet any offensive pressure, and when they did, they folded against Sam Houston. Like, that has to be a massive concern for them. Defensive line.
The ATM they look like a week one team. That it's like, well, they came out slow and they get to get the rust off, and they forgot to take all their NIL money out of their pockets before they went on the field, and just slowed them down. And I mean,
they're a team that plays down to their competition a lot, and that's why they end up at 8-4 a lot.
Yeah,
they're not consistent week to week, and they've got Appalachian State at home, and they should handle them without a big problem. But if they don't show up, if they play down to Appalachian State will come at them.
Yeah, I mean, also lose 20 to Appalachian State. Let's face facts.
But I mean, Texas A&M, they're better than that, and we'll see them play better than that. So Arkansas beat Cincy.
Yep, I actually watched that game. It was pretty good. Yeah, I think Arkansas has the potential to be a legit top 10 team this year. But it's week 1, so I'm not drawing any conclusions based on that. So
Yeah, I agreed. But yeah, they look good beating a Cincy team that's supposed to be good themselves, even though they did lose quite a bit off of last year's playoff team. Ole Miss went played Troy and only won 28-10. I would expect Ole Miss to beat Troy a lot worse than that.
Yeah, I don't understand how did Ole Miss not flog Troy? Like, I mean, just put 45 points on them before the half, and then just go into downhill cruise.
Yeah,
I think it's got to be breaking in a new quarterback.
Yeah, big Ole Miss has just got a big question mark on my notes here. Like, I don't know what to expect from these guys. So.
And to round it out, Mississippi State took it to Memphis, 49-23.
Well, that's
a good win for them.
Didn't they rush for like 100 yards? I mean, on Mike Leach's team rushing for 100 yards, Memphis is horrible. Okay. And they still scored 23 points. So,
yeah.
Yeah. And, you almost forgot.
Did I?
Your favorite team, the Gamecocks. Well, your favorite mascot.
Oh, yeah. Well, if only Max Johnson played for South Carolina.
There you go. Yes. So USC East, they won 35-14 against Georgia State. So,
not Tech, not Georgia.
I know, right? Not Georgia Tech State. So.
Yeah. So they're Skip Holt. They love Skip Holt, but I got to see some results from him.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing them yet.
Yep. Any other games of note, John? I didn't make any notes for outside the SEC, so take it away if you got it.
All right. Well, I can run through the top 10 and their scores and a preview. Georgia pummeled Alabama. We know what happened. We all watched that. Georgia pummeled Oregon and Captain YOLO. The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been Bo Nix inconsistency. That's a James Earl Jones quote, by the way. Come on, nobody a Field of Dreams fan here.
It took me a minute. I just realized that our ticker is broken. That is a StreamYard problem. I don't know why it's cutting our ticker off. I just caught that and I apologize. But please continue.
Ohio State beat Notre Dame 21-10 in what was really a defensive battle. Stroud was adequate, but their offense struggled most of the day. And their defense did hold Notre Dame to 253 yards total offense. Anybody watch that game?
I was rooting for Giant Meteor, so I was kind of in and out of it periodically.
I have to say, for probably the second time in my life, the first time was when Notre Dame played Miami. This was the second time in my life that I actually rooted for Notre Dame. But Notre Dame, they couldn't muster much offense at all against the Ohio State defense. I don't know if it's because Notre Dame's offense is that bad or if Ohio State's defense was that good, but their offense looked a lot like they were using Stanford's 2010 era 4 yards in a cloud of nanoparticles offense. If you guys remember them, they had a couple of running backs that went pro because of that offense, where they just put they would have like 9 offensive linemen and tight ends up there. And line them up tight and make you pick a gap.
Yeah.
Much of what Notre Dame has. Like Michael Meyer, who's great, don't get me wrong. I think he's one of the top tight end kids next class, and then Lenz. Like that's it, right? You consider who Ohio State was putting on the defensive line, really how Notre Dame moved the ball. It wasn't great. They had one busted play early in the game. I got a chance to catch a little bit on replays. It was more of the same of what you would expect of Notre Dame. And of course, they really didn't show up late because honestly, what a shock. I mean, talk about this. Stroud was forgettable. Jackson Smith and Jibba, 3 yards. He got hurt. Like, this is something that's notable to me because I'm still decently high on the Irish right now, because I'll give you my top 10, top 25, whatever, eventually. But to beat them like that was good, I think, from an Alabama sense. Good that Ohio State looked very beatable, but on the other hand, they beat Notre Dame, who is, I think, an underrated school this year, at least defensively. I don't think they have much on the offense, like I've been saying. But to beat a team like that when you're playing maybe your C game at your best, it's so weird. I was not impressed by either team at all. But that's great news, I think, for the Tide.
Yeah. And Ohio State next has Arkansas State and Columbus. Yeah, can Butch Jones do us a solid? Maybe make something happen? Things have happened, but not much stranger.
Yeah.
Number four Michigan rammed through Colorado State 51-7. 4 different Wolverines had rushing touchdowns, and Cade McNamara was 9 of 18 for 136 yards and a TD. He's setting the world on fire. They also had 3 field goals and a 45-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown. Highlight of the game: 5th-string quarterback Alex Orgy scored a touchdown with less than 2 minutes in the game.
You just wanted to say Orgy
because his name is Orgy.
You just, well, I knew it. I was like, he's going to mention Alex Orgy's touch. Yeah, and there he goes.
And the guy at Michigan State, though. I mean, honestly, what is going on?
Oh, that was a hoax. That one's a hoax.
Oh.
Yeah, we can't say that, but it did turn out to be a hoax, and
yeah,
it's too beautiful to be true.
If only Washington was any good. I mean, they have quarterback transfer Michael Penix Jr., who I think he played for who? Someone in the ACC last year, but
I thought it was Big Ten, right? I thought it was
No, you're right. It was Indiana. It was Indiana
and
where
then,
he played.
Yeah.
And but he got the big head and decided to transfer to Washington.
So can we please get Oregon State to play South Carolina at some point? Please, it's never happened.
Are any of you were any of you fans of the old was it the Gulf South Conference? Jacksonville State and Troy were both in that conference, and they were big rivals in Division II.
I went to several of those games.
Okay. Well, did you ever hear the famous Jacksonville State cheer? The Jacksonville State Gamecocks.
Cheers, the signs, the yeah, it was Mm-hmm.
Ain't no Trojans can hold our
Anyway.
So anyway, Michigan. Next up, they have Hawaii and Ann Arbor. And somebody get those poor kids some parkas. They're not going to be used to this kind of weather. I mean,
they're not.
They're not used to it being below 70 there. So help them out, somebody. Number 5, Clemson. Yes.
It was closer than the score showed. They let Georgia Tech stay in that game way, way too long. Like, honestly, their defensive line looked the part. DJ Uiagalelei did not look the part. Again, as soon as Klubnik came in, night and day. They got to make the switch, honestly, because that is a different offense when it's not DJ's offense.
Yeah.
Like, you got to spend a different tune. I don't understand the hesitancy.
Yeah, I read an article a few weeks ago about Dabo using what he learned under Gene Stallings at Alabama to model Clemson's program. I didn't expect him to go so far as putting Freddie Kitchen in at quarterback, but that's what he's done, it looks like.
Well, I mean, Swinney is stuck in. I'm sorry. I apologize, Clemson fans. If you're going to write me nasty emails, say bad things about me on social media, Clemson is stuck in 2017.
Yeah. So one of the defining traits that makes Saban such a good coach is his willingness to adjust, and when he sees things that are changing, he's willing to change with it. Dabo is just not doing that at all.
Embrace that change too. Because 2017, I don't know if that was intentional, but I think about how 2017 went for them. Granted, they were the number 1 team in the college football playoff, smoked them 24-6, but like that was the Kelly Bryant year. They didn't have Watson. Lawrence was a year out, and they were screwed because they had Phenom with what's his 5 million syllable last name at that point, who was the backup. It really is a 2017 issue right now. Because Klubnik, I would like to see go against a decent defense. It is the ACC, so I don't know if he'll see that. But still, there's no reason to be stuck in this mentality. You got the big bag and extension today, Dabo. You got to make the move if you want a chance to get back into prominence, or that dynasty is more dead than I think it is. Because
Yeah,
I think they got a chance if they make the change. I think they should be the number 4 seed this year by my projections. But like this, no. You can't be basically tied with Georgia Tech for a while like that, or be up by 1 score until it was late. It was just sloppy, disorganized football. You had decent wide receivers, but you had consistent overthrows. It reminded me against Jalen Hurts against Florida State, honestly, because you had all kinds of good skill players for your side, but not doing enough with them.
Yeah, I mean, if Dabo thinks he's unassailable, that he has built a Saban-like dynasty, he needs to take a crash course at the Mark Richt School of F around with a Regents and find out.
There's 2 of his sons on the roster right now. Like, that's crazy. 2. I understand 1, but man, 2 of your kids? Damn.
Yeah. Couldn't send one of them to Alabama, Dabo? Let him get trained up under a good coach? Sorry, hashtag how I feel. Oh, John, your mic is completely out of whack, bud.
Is it better?
That's better. Yeah.
All right.
Good.
So they have a whole bunch of local kids named Dustin and Justin and Brandon that look to be like kids of coaches or, well, celebrities in some cases out of Nashville. I'm not going to name names. Herb Street. And they have too many of those kids that are there to take up a roster spot, scholarship, and be a permanent backup. And they don't have enough depth because of that, and that's going to bite them, I have to say. And Clemson, they have Furman coming up. Furman is a Greenville team and a local team that they like to bring over to Pommel occasionally. But I will say this: Furman has a prettier lake than Clemson, much prettier.
So would you say Furman is Clemson with a lake?
With a better lake.
Furman is Elon with a pretty lake.
There you go.
So number 6 Texas A&M beat Sam Houston 3-0. They've got App State at home this week. Oklahoma, they played UTEP last week, and they are now under investigation. Did you hear about this?
No, I did not.
They're being investigated for bringing minors across state lines and doing immoral things to them in a 45 win. So they had about 253 yards rushing with 4 TDs and 233 yards passing with only 2 touchdowns. So they actually outrushed. They're sort of balanced, but they're a little run heavy. Their defense, however, allowed 0.9 yards per carry, 29 yards on 31 carries, and they got a pick. So,
well, that's hard.
Maybe it's because it's UTEP, but maybe they actually have a defense this year. We'll see. But next this week, they have Kent State and Norman, so we're still not going to learn much from that. Notre Dame, we obviously know what happened with them. They fought hard, they got beat 21-10 by Ohio State. They're playing We Are Marshall in South Bend this week. And on the home stretch, Baylor, number 9, beat the Great Danes of Albany, another CAA team, 69-10. Let's see. They had 7 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing, and a 72-yard punt return. And they're playing number 21 BYU and Provo this week. And last, we have number 10 USC, and this is Southern Cal, not the Gamecocks. They beat Rice 66-14. Ran for 4 touchdowns, but had 3 pick sixes.
Yeah.
So that is a little inflated, but hey, that's maybe playing a little bit of defense out there. We'll see. And this weekend they were playing Stanford in Sanford Stadium. And FYI, just as an aside, I actually used to work with the founder of Stanford's Quidditch team. Nice lady. A little nerdy.
It's a thing that I know now. I was not aware of that thing, and now that is a thing that I know. Thank you. See that, folks, that's what you don't get with other sports talk programs. All right, is ESPN going to tell you that they know the head founder of Stanford's Quidditch team? No.
They're not even going to tell you that they have a Quidditch team.
Paul Feinbaum is not going to come up here and drop the name of the sport of Harry Potter and Friends. It's just not going to happen. But here it is.
It's a sport that they play in this book. It's called Quidditch. You fly around. I don't know how you fly around, but they fly around, and they try to get the snick. Now, when I was a kid, I was growing up. You wanted to avoid the snicks because that means you pulled on people. Although I guess some people would say that's what I do now, that I tell on people.
That's creepy. That's like eerie good. Well done. Round of applause.
I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great way to move on to the next segment.
All right. So aside from Quidditch and great impressions and so forth around the show, we like to do a little segment towards the end of the show called Buy, Sell, or Hold, or Keep. And if you play the stock market a little bit, this is just a little bit of fun we have, but it kind of gives you an idea of where we're at with a segment of football. And honestly, we're sticking to the top 10 because if you're not top 10, you're bottom whatever. Where we examine teams and consider them as stocks to be bought all we can, to be sold as quickly as possible, or to hold. We don't buy, but we don't sell. And our resident financial genius, Big John, is going to walk us through the ticker tape. So go ahead and take it away.
I'm the richest man in the trailer park.
Tick, 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 tick. We don't have a proper soundboard yet. So tick, 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 tick. Go ahead.
All right. So I will say that this is probably the hardest top 10 I've done in a while. And I'm going to start with my number one, Georgia. And I'm putting Georgia at number one because they beat us last, and well, nobody's knocked them off yet. So there you go. What are we doing? Buying or selling? Bo.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold that. I prefer Georgia to be number one, especially at this point in the season. Let them wear that target on their back. Let them collect that rat poison. I'm good with it.
Yes.
I never say this, but it's a bit of both. I have them tied by a complex rating system that I use with another team. So it's a little bit of buy, but it's also a little bit of hold. So I guess we could say that we're buying a Class B share. If we want to make a stock joke about it.
So you're buying the options.
Yeah. We can get a covered call on this. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Bill.
I'm doing this just to break with everyone. Sell. F them. No, I mean, realistically, if we're looking at it like a stock, hold. I'll hold. Let him eat rat poison. Let him sit in your number one.
All right.
We're going to hold. The greatest trick that Nick Saban is able to perform on his players to squeeze maximum performance out of them is not, and I think it's part of the process, but I don't think it's the whole process, but it's convincing them that they're underdogs. Even when they're
Bill, because an emotional investor is a poor investor. Good job.
Yes.
All right. My number two is Alabama.
Bye. Sorry, you didn't ask, but I'm jumping straight in.
Hey, that's fine. Buy. I got you in the buy.
You got to buy the dips, but this could be a dip. It can only go up from here. Buy.
Now I'm going to buy the put on that one. So I want to buy the option to put Bama at number two onto someone else. That's what I want to do.
All right.
Shrewd man.
I'm going to nod sagely and pretend I understand what you just said.
Me too.
It's a very clever way of putting it. I like what you said there. For me, though, Alabama really is the one that's tied with Georgia here. So I should explain actually what the system is. So both of them are tied at 2.62. Oh, what does 2.62 mean? I'm actually going to explain that, so please wait. So what it means is that based upon a neutral field against an average opponent, that these teams would be expected to score 2.62 points more per drive over an average opponent throughout the course of a game. That's all it means.
That's fascinating. And Georgia and Alabama have the same, you say.
Exactly. Yeah, 2.62. And
All
everyone else, the third one is 2.16. I won't say who it is because we haven't named it, but it shows you what a big gap it is.
Truly. Well,
I was told there would be no math. I'm over here slapping stuff down on a spreadsheet, and you guys are using algorithms. I'm impressed. All right, I've got to up my game. All right, my number 3 might be a slight surprise. It's Michigan.
that is a surprise.
Right now, I have to say they're better than Ohio State.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I had him at 4, but I'll buy him at 3. He was a toss-up between the two for me. So yeah, sure.
All right.
Now we're going to go
Jess, what do you
into
think about this?
we're going on to options with this. Now, for me, I'm going to say a strip here. So for those who don't know what that is, a strip is basically you take a little bit of both sides, but you buy a little bit more on the fact that the stock is not going to perform. Because like you, I had him at number 4. Number 4 is 1.86, basically. So it's actually, yeah. So basically, what we see with that is part of it is actually representing of this per possession scoring advantage. Basically, some of it's opponent adjusted. You might know that is S&P Plus by Mr. Connolly. So we combine that, and it basically is a standard deviation above. So Georgia and Alabama are 2.62. Michigan's 1.86. So again, it's a slight sell. So we say a strip. So we do take some stock in the fact that they might go up, but it is more negative than it is neutral or positive.
I'm going to call that a slight sell. And Bill, what do you think?
There's always IT employees who work in shops that don't let them wear cargo shorts. So khakis never go out of style, unfortunately. So I am a buy on Michigan.
Yeah.
Not much. Right. Not much. That's my playing around investment.
There you go. Okay. Well, number 4 should straighten things out a little bit because that's Ohio State. But I have to say, Michigan pummeled Ohio State. They've been more physical, and that seems to be where Ohio State is weak. So that's why I put Michigan above Ohio State until Ohio State proves something. That's where they stay.
Yeah, I'll take some Ohio State at 4 as well. I like I said, it was a toss-up for me. I didn't do the heavy deep dive data analysis that Jess did, and I just randomly picked Ohio State, Michigan at 3 and 4. So, but I'm good with them being 4 and 3. So
that's definitely a buy for me. Again, that's a team that was the 2.16 team. They were number 3 to me. You consider the gap. So it's 2.62, as I mentioned, for the Bulldogs and the Tide. Then you have Ohio State 2.16, Michigan 1.86. Then you drop off into the 1.5 areas. Again, won't spoil those. But considering what a gap it is from them to Michigan, granted, sample size is 1 week and it's very volatile data, but given off we're going off of, yeah, I'll buy them at that. I think they're better than number 4 right now. And it does matter because it means you wouldn't face number 1. So
there you go. Bill?
I got to go with smarter people in the room. I guess they're a buy for me too.
Okay. So it gets harder after this. Well, after Texas A&M, which is number 5, I think it gets harder. But tell me what you think about that.
I will sell.
All right.
Will sell Texas A&M at 5 all day. I do not believe that they are of that caliber. But I agree with you. After the top four, it's basically drawing names out of a hat. So
yeah.
I would
And-
think
and-
so with this. I don't believe in a lot of their parts right now. I don't believe in their offense. Like honestly, Clemson, Texas A&M, and Wisconsin were the three biggest disappointments for this week for teams that I thought were going to be very good and just did not show up offensively. They all won, but it's not the point. I mean, they just didn't show up, and that's the sell to me.
Fair. Bill, what do you think?
Texas A&M consistently pisses me off, and I'm not just talking about last year's game. I mean, Texas A&M is a team that you cannot bet on, that you cannot rely on, that if you don't, you'll realize that you should have, and you could have made a fortune. And that pisses me off because I honestly don't know buy, sell, or hold on these guys. There's no consistently clear picture. It's like trying to look through a plate of milk.
it's a very fitting analogy considering their cheerleaders' uniforms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, there's your
I don't think
connection.
there's anything wrong with that.
intellectual things we do on the show, folks.
So you're just basically in a not to use too technical a trading term, you're just staying the hell away from this.
I think Bill's saying he wouldn't buy Texas A&M with your money. I think that's what he's saying.
I wouldn't buy Texas A&M. If I had bought Texas A&M last year, I wouldn't. I wouldn't sell any Texas A&M.
So that's called a hold.
That's called a hold, yeah.
It's just I have none. I will buy.
So you're
none.
holding it 0, okay?
I'm holding it 0. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You know,
I like that. That's what I would call staying the hell away from it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not buying stock in a cult. Okay.
The Scientology people are not going to like that. Anyway, next, my number 6, and this is where it's going to get weird here. Just stay with me, guys. Baylor.
Not that
Because
high.
they have a defense. That's why. I think
They have a top 10
defense.
defense. They didn't show up offensively either. Like,
Yeah, that's their problem.
which is interesting, right? For a Big 12 school like that, that's. I mean, I think it's so theirs to lose, but like, that's really not a conference fit. It's kind of like if you had an offense back in the, like back in our heyday where we put defense first, where we would just run the ball over everybody like a bulldozer, like in the Ingram days. You didn't see passing teams succeed then. You can't go too much against type. So it's just an interesting psychology experiment.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Baylor at number 6. Are we buying, selling, or holding?
Sell it. Big sell.
I'm selling.
Oh, nobody likes this one.
Yeah,
Bill, what do you think?
That's another one of those head scratchers, but I think I'm selling Baylor.
Yeah, I had
Fair.
Baylor in my not in the top 10 list. So
Yeah. This is a Baylor is one of those early season, we picked our top 4 and then we rolled dice to put the rest of the teams here based on no actual analytics. I promise you guys something.
we should do that one week.
Right now, yeah, I'll make up a chart with a D20 or something.
Absolutely.
I will tell you this right now. I will guarantee you this. This is to our audience. This is to my co-hosts. Nobody will be talking about Baylor. Baylor will be a non-issue by the 3rd Saturday in October. They won't even be a factor.
We say that, but Baylor, remember, was seconds away from winning the Big 12 title game. This last
Yeah,
year.
they were my favorites to win the 12 this year. Honestly.
I don't.
They're better than you think, and they're fooling you because they actually play defense, and you're not used to seeing that out of the Big 12.
I'm not. No.
So just be careful with that.
I'm sticking to that prediction. I'm selling Baylor. I don't get a I don't know.
I mean, this is literally the Baylor Bears at this point from you. So
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I like it. So my number
That took
7,
me a
and
minute. That took
I'm
me
already
a
second
minute,
guessing
Justin.
myself on number 7. Is Notre Dame. I put them there, but I'm not sure that they're.
Can we fire John from the show? Is that possible?
I can cut his salary in half.
Okay, all right, do that.
Half of 0 is 0, buddy.
The guy who decided we should be on Sunday mornings already had his salary cut in half, so I'm not afraid to do it again.
Does that mean that Jess and I get a raise?
Sure, you can absorb. We can absorb it now, both of you guys.
So 7, Notre Dame. Apparently, you don't like that, Bo.
No, definitely not. I had them in mind, not in the top 10 list along with everybody else. Just so, I mean, it's like there's not that. No, they're not. They're like 12, 13, something like that.
I
Maybe.
totally get that, but my problem came. Who would you put there? Because there isn't anybody.
there. I put Clemson there. I put Clemson there, assuming they're going to make a quarterback change. Okay, it's a Clemson with an asterisk.
We'll see. So, Bo, I assume you're a sell here for Notre Dame
Yes,
7.
absolutely.
Jess,
only slightly. I mean, I have Wisconsin at this spot, but it's very close. I'm a believer in Notre Dame's defense. I really am. I'm not as sold on their offense. I think they have an interesting road ahead for sure. But this is probably, I think, a good rebound week for them going forward, and the media is going to fall in love with them again. I think I would slightly sell because I don't think they're quite this good, but I would understand why they're this high. So I'm okay with that.
all right, Bill.
Hold. I'm sorry. I hate to be so weak sauce about it, but I don't have strong feelings about Notre Dame either way, other than
I do.
if they get in our sights, we'll friggin' destroy them. That's just how it is. If Notre Dame gets in our sights, we'll destroy them. So I'm a slight sell on Notre Dame. I'll say slight sell.
Slight sell. Okay, we got a sell and 2 slight sells. That works. All right, and my number 8 right now is Oklahoma.
I would buy Oklahoma at 8, but only because I think they're worth more than that. I have them at 5.
Okay.
Similar thoughts. I think that's a well-rounded team. That should be a good Big 12 title game, I think, but between what's going to be probably Oklahoma and Baylor. Like, who else do you imagine it would be, right? Like, Texas? No. Like, I'm trying to think. Oklahoma State? No. I mean, this is a good team. I think Venables is actually a solid head coach now they finally got out of Clemson and got a chance to show what he's worth.
Yeah, okay. And honestly, the one reason I was reluctant to put Oklahoma in my top 10 was new coach, but they actually had a little bit of defense going on, and I like to see that. All right. So, Bill, what do you think about Oklahoma?
Give me a second. Oklahoma. I mean, they're a Midwest team. They're trying to sneak into the SEC. Let me see if I can adequately sum this up in a single image. If I can. I will sell Oklahoma. No.
Okay. Fair. All right. My last 2. Yeah. Is that the horns down version? The O down?
Oh yeah, no. I saw that. It's a great meme. You just, hey, did Oklahoma win? No.
Gotcha. All right. Well, my number 9 is Florida.
State or University of?
State? They're not. I'm not sure Florida State is number 9 in Florida.
I got Florida State at 41.
I don't have Florida State on my list at all.
I mean, there's FAU, FIU, USF, UCF.
I mean, I had Florida at 11. So if you've got them at 9, if I had them at 9, I would hold, because I think that's but I had them slightly lower than that. I had them at 11. So
Big sell, because as good as the Utah win was, it was about what I expected. So when I was handicapping that game, I believe I had Utah by 1. The fact Florida played it close is pretty much within error bars and expected. Yeah, did they move up? Yes. They're 20 for me. I don't think they're quite as good as people were saying. I liked Cam Rising to be a dark horse Heisman. I still do. I don't think this moves the needle as much for me as it has the pollsters. That's the thing. I was happy with their win, and they should be very happy with it. But, man, I haven't seen this big of a reaction since a week 1, since I've seen a pregnancy positive test. Like, congrats, you're pregnant. Now, what are you going to do with it?
Okay. And Bill, your thoughts?
The University of Florida in the last 5 or 6 years has been the most Florida thing ever. And I can't help but love it, because I live here in Florida, and I'm not a Florida Gators fan, but dear Lord, the hucking the shoe down the field, they are the Florida maniest Florida men who ever Florida'd. So I'm a buy, just straight into my veins.
You're just hoping that somebody throws something down the field and loses a game on it, aren't you?
I'm not hoping somebody throws something down the field and loses.
All right. Okay. Well, my number 10 team just played Florida. My number 10 is Utah. They lost by 3 traveling across the country.
Yeah. That's exactly where I have Utah as a 10. So I think that's a hold. Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
I'd say it's 17. As I said, as a teaser, Cam Rising is the real deal. Probably going to get invited to New York City this year. I don't trust their defense at all. Florida showed that late. Richardson's a great passer, don't get me wrong. But who do you really trust them? Granted, it's the Pac-12, so they can get away with quite a bit more. But when push comes to shove, would you really trust them in a bowl game? In the Rose Bowl over a Michigan or a Wisconsin or an Ohio State? I wouldn't.
I think Michigan would crush them. With Wisconsin, Ohio State would crush them. Well, no, I don't know. The thing is that Utah usually has this physicality, which usually, whereas Ohio State has had problems lately. And I remember that Utah did actually beat Ohio State in a bowl game this last year. But Utah, I don't think this year. I don't think they're quite the same. But Utah, Wisconsin, I think will be a good game. Maybe even Utah, Michigan State. But yeah, no. And my problem doing this thing, and I was doing this thing instead of working this afternoon. Don't tell my boss. I got to number 4, and I was like, now what? I mean, it's just so bad. I don't think that they're top 10 teams, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The drop off after 4 is just, I mean, like Jeff said, it's a lot. It's like 2 standard deviations.
It's Niagara-esque.
Yeah.
So
we should just might as well roll a D20 and see where they show up, right?
Who's to say I didn't do that? So, Bill, last one. What you got?
I don't know. I was all fixing to say, Utah's not going to be sticking around. You don't worry about Utah. They're going to be, and now you guys are like, well, they beat these. So now I actually have to think about it, give it legitimate thought.
Oh, careful.
Yeah, I know that burning smell is my brain electronics. Well, it was not some massive blowout. I mean, the Gators did not romper stomp Utah. Mistakes can happen to anybody. So ask Brian Kelly. And I want to point something out. Because I saw this, and I'm just gonna mention this as a quick aside, and I promise I'll answer your question. I watched like the close-ups and the replays of that kick. The ball was spun. The laces were placed perfectly. The kicker stance was fine. The left hand of LSU's line collapsed. That young man did nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. So there.
Yeah, look how they landed on the weak side. It was pathetic, but they did, honestly.
I think it's what you said. Like Jess said that he missed 3 blocks on the same play.
Oh, that guy. All he had to do was fall inside, and that kick doesn't get blocked.
We 4 could have stopped him. You could have put us 4 in pads, and we could have blocked that, and they would have won that. Anyway, to get back to Utah, I don't know. I mean, once you get down and you're scraping the bottom of the barrel like this, are you looking at a strong up and comer? Or are you talking about a team that's about to disappear without a ripple? And with Utah, that almost beat Florida, I'm buying. Okay, I mean, I won't come December, but right now I'm buying.
Well, there you have it. How hot were the takes today, right?
Yep.
But that's the best I could do with what I had. I made some chicken salad. I'm not telling you what the ingredients were.
Everybody likes sausage. Nobody wants to see how it's made.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, thank you very much, Big John, for that great buy, sell, hold. That is always a fun feature that we do here, and we're gonna clean up a few rough spots here. It was our first game this season too, guys. So we'll put some polish on the technical side of things. I promise I won't let ESPN play over just a segment next time. What happened was I was pulling up the stats page for the Alabama game, and they just decided to randomly start playing a video at me. But anyway, so we've got some fun stuff in the pipeline. You can buy us a coffee, guys, if you go to buymeacoffee.com and look for Houndstooth Podcast. I'll put that in the chat here. And if you want to tip us for our good deeds or send us money to make us stop telling jokes, then whatever works for you, we certainly appreciate it. This season, we're gonna have merch. We're gonna have a Patreon with different tiers for you guys. Who out there would not love to have a mug with a Houndstooth Podcast logo designed by our own Boganora on it? I know I would. Or a pint glass, or a T-shirt, or something wonderful like that. We're going to have all kinds of fun stuff like that coming up this season. We will continue with trivia, which TJP nailed from the 50-yard line with UCLA. We're going to be doing that week in and week out. And yeah, we're going to have a ton of fun with it. So thank you everybody who tuned in this evening to watch or listen, or if you're tuning in later to watch or to listen. I had a lot of fun, and I hope you did too. So with that said, I think we'll go ahead and get on out of here, unless anybody else has any closing thoughts.
Oh, roll Tide, hordes down.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Give me Alabama.
Y'all have a wonderful evening.